Well, good morning or good afternoon to you all, wherever you are logging in from. My name is Charlene Margot, and I'm co-founder of nonprofit The Parent Venture that brings you this program, the Parent Education Series, now in its 18th season. We are delighted to have with us today Janice Martellucci, who is going to be talking with you about her organization, Peace in Schools, and why mindfulness education matters.
Charlene, thank you so much for the warm welcome. I'm so grateful to be here. Yes, I'm Janice. I'm the executive director of the nonprofit Peace in Schools. And I'm so excited to share with you today about why mindfulness education matters. A little bit more about me. As Charlene shared, I found mindfulness practice back in 2010. I was a young adult going through a difficult time in my life, and I actually met the founder of Peace in Schools, who Caverly Morgan became my meditation teacher. So I started as a student, and then when Peace in Schools started up, I was one of the first teachers. And now I'm a leader of the organization. So this is my 8th year with Peace in Schools, and as a student, a teacher, a leader, this is Peace in Schools. Our work with teens and mindfulness education is truly of my heart. It's my life's work. And I'm so happy to share it with you. Some of you might be brand new to the idea of mindfulness and meditation. Some of you might have years of practice under your belt. There'll be a little something for everyone today. So with our time, I'd love to start just with a simple foundation of what is mindfulness, and specifically how we talk about that at Peace in Schools. And what I'm going to offer you today is what we offer teens in the classroom as we teach. I'll share then a little bit more about our work at Peace in Schools and precisely how we bring mindfulness education into the high school setting. And then there should be plenty of time for question and answer as well. So I'd love to start just with a little inquiry. So like I said, some of you might be brand new to this idea of mindfulness, some of you might not. No matter where you're coming from today, I'd love to start by inviting each of us to pause and consider, what does being mindful mean to you? What does it mean to be present? And what are we being present to? The root word of mindfulness in Sanskrit and Pali languages means remembrance. So when we look at just the word itself, we could say that mindfulness is a practice of remembering. It's remembering that we can be in the present moment. And it's also about getting in touch with and remembering who we authentically are. At Peace in Schools, we worked with a classroom of teens to come up with a definition that we wanted to use in our curriculum. And the teens came up with being here and now with kindness. I love this definition for its simplicity, getting to the heart, and how we're being present really matters. So compassion, kindness, and non-judgment must be part of any mindfulness practice. Lastly, I'd love to talk before I give you an experience of mindfulness, which is truly the best way to get a sense of what it is. I want to talk a little bit about where it comes from and who it's for. So at Peace in Schools, we believe that mindfulness as a capacity belongs to every human. It's not exclusive to any culture or tradition. It's something that can be practiced by all people, regardless of who you are, what you believe, where you're from. And it's important to acknowledge and celebrate the very long and rich history of mindfulness as we try it out ourselves.
Janice, I'm sorry to interrupt you. May I ask you a question? We are not seeing your slides. Are we supposed to be seeing your slides?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Sorry for
Yeah, I'll have slides just a little bit later after we do a little practice.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Charlene. So mindfulness has its roots in Buddhism. It has been practiced in India and Asia throughout centuries. The practices of presence can be found across cultures all over the world. And at Peace in Schools, we offer secular, trauma-informed tools, mindfulness tools for well-being, and we have a deep commitment to equity and racial justice. So before I go into the slides, I thought, in keeping with how we do everything at Peace in Schools, I'd offer an experience, just a few moments of mindfulness that'll guide you in. And then I'm really excited to share more about our organization and our work in high school classrooms. So let's try out mindfulness ourselves. I know this is a lunch and learn, so maybe you're eating, maybe you're multitasking, whatever you're doing right now, if possible, set aside any distractions just for the next few moments. Put your phone on silent. And I'll guide us just through a really brief, simple experience of mindfulness. So if you'd like, you can close your eyes or keep them open and maybe gaze away from the screen or look down softly at the floor. This little mindful moment I'm offering, I'll invite us to use the breath as the focus of our practice. And since our breath is in the present moment, if we pay attention to it, we will also be in the present moment. And if at any time during this short practice, your breath doesn't feel supportive to focus on, know you could alternatively focus on the feeling of your hands in your lap, or perhaps gazing at a neutral object in the space that you're in. Go ahead and bring all of the attention to the breath. And let your body just rest for a moment. Allow the breath to be easy and natural and free. Simply noticing the rise and the fall of your chest with each breath in and breath out. Perhaps bringing awareness to the sensation at the tip of the nose, the nostrils. And acknowledge that for the next few moments, there's nowhere you have to go. There's nothing you have to do, and there's no one that you have to be. You can just let yourself relax into this moment exactly as it is. Let your breath guide you. Allow your attention to rest on the rhythm of the breath. You don't need to change anything about your breath, and you don't need to change anything about yourself. When thoughts arise in the mind, see if you can simply allow them to form, come into your awareness, and then pass. Notice them come and go like clouds passing in the sky while keeping your attention on the breath. Nothing you have to do, nowhere you have to go. And no one you have to be. Just take the next minute to be and breathe in presence. On your next breath in, I invite you to take the deepest and the longest breath you've taken all day so far. And at the bottom of that exhalation, you can open the eyes, raise the gaze, or come back to the group, the screen. Keep eating your lunch if that's what you were up to. And as you're returning to engage in a different way, just take a moment to notice without judgment what you're present to mentally, physically, emotionally after taking that brief moment of mindfulness. There's no right or wrong answer, just taking a moment to notice what you're present to. If there's a word or phrase that might sum up your experience. At Peace in Schools, we always offer an experience before as a way to teach. So rather than teaching at or lecture-based approach, we like to offer something and see what the teens learn from it themselves. So I am going to share my slides now and move into just a little bit more about mindfulness and then sharing the story of Peace in Schools. So last but not least, after sharing a little bit about how we define mindfulness at Peace in Schools, the history and the roots of the practice, giving you a little experience yourself, the last thing I'd like to offer is just the myth of mindfulness. So there are so many misconceptions about mindfulness out there. And you might look at this list and this could be a list of all things that you thought were true. So I just want to take a minute here to offer these up. And this is what we go over with the teens at the beginning of our semester-long class as well. So myths of mindfulness. It is a myth that the goal of mindfulness is to clear your mind. It's okay if you never experience a clear mind. In fact, it's common for the mind to always feel busy. In mindfulness, we're not trying to push away thoughts or get rid of them. We're learning how to be with our internal experience in a new, compassionate way. It is a myth that mindfulness is about feeling calm and relaxed all the time. Relaxation and calm can be benefits of mindfulness, but they're not the goal. For many, mindfulness can feel really challenging and uncomfortable at times, and that's okay. Mindfulness is just for blank kinds of people. This is a great one that we explore with the teens. When people think of mindfulness and meditation, they might picture, a white woman sitting in a lotus position on top of a mountaintop with her hair in the breeze, something on a magazine cover. And, at Peace in Schools, we work with all teens from all different backgrounds. We have an incredibly diverse demographic that we serve. And so it is essential that they understand that mindfulness has been around for thousands of years. It's been practiced by all different types of people. And it can be practiced by anyone, regardless of ethnicity, gender, socioeconomic status, religion, etc. Another myth of mindfulness is that it's a quick fix to your problems. Mindfulness can definitely provide many benefits in the short term. However, it's not going to make your life perfect. But over time, your experience deepens and widens. That's been my experience of the practice. And we really frame it as a lifelong practice. And lastly, mindfulness. It's a myth that mindfulness is about escaping reality. So mindfulness is a practice that focuses on connection and awareness. It tends to make us even more aware of the things around us. It helps us see more clearly. It can reduce bias because of that. And for this reason, mindfulness is connected to things like social justice, racial equity. It gives us tools so that we can use to navigate the challenges and hardships we encounter in all aspects of life, individually and socially. And so just to offer something beyond my own words and my own testimony. This is a quote straight from one of our students in the Mindful Studies class at Peace in Schools. They say, "Mindfulness class changed my life for the better. It's helped me accept and honor myself. I learned that it's okay to be me. The self-assurance and self-acceptance part of the class has been very inspiring." So mindfulness is a lot of things, but at Peace in Schools, we really center authenticity, heartfulness, and a depth, and that's why it's transformational for so many of our young people. And so now I'm so excited to share about the heart of our work at Peace in Schools. Now that we have kind of a foundation of mindfulness, or at least how we talk about mindfulness at Peace in Schools, let's talk about our work. So first and foremost, we're a nonprofit dedicated to teens and the well-being of this beautiful part of life. Take a look at this photo. How does it make you feel? I love this photo so much. Look at these faces. These are teens from one of our high schools in Portland, Oregon, holding up their intention project that's part of our class. And just take a moment to take in their faces and maybe take a moment to recall your own experience of being a teen. How would you describe that experience of being a teen in one word? No right or wrong answers, no judgment. Was it tender? Was it thrilling? Was it joyful? Was it painful? Teens are so special. They're in this precious space between childhood and adulthood. And Peace in Schools is proud to really focus on this special time. Adolescence is a particularly sensitive and critical stage of human development, socially, emotionally, physically, psychologically. What we experience or what we don't experience as a teen can truly tip the scale for lifelong well-being. And so every nonprofit exists to help try to solve a problem. And the crisis that Peace in Schools is here to try to help is the teen mental health crisis. I'm sure this is not news to many of you, or most of you, or all of you, but our teens are struggling and the statistics are sobering. And here's a few to just remind us of the magnitude of the crisis that we're seeing in our teens right now. So 75% of mental disorders like depression and anxiety arise by the age of 24. Poor mental health contributes to behavioral problems, substance abuse, creates tons of barriers in education, future employment, etc. Depression and onset usually peaks between ages 13 and 15, and that's even getting younger and younger as time passes. One thing that I found really surprising was that even in the decade before the pandemic, depression rates doubled for all teens. And we know the pandemic was not easy on anyone. Suicide continues to be the second most common cause of death in the United States for youth aged 15 to 24. Nearly 1 in 3 teen girls report having seriously considered suicide in the past year, as have 1 in 5 LGBTQ+ teens. A report from 2021 that surveyed 17,000 US high school students found that feelings of sadness, hopelessness, affected more than 1/3 of teens of all genders, races, ethnicities, and backgrounds. So this is a social crisis in so many ways, and it's costly. It's costly in a lot of ways, and I just include this number here of $14.8 billion are spent, just to give a sense of the magnitude. A lot of people, when they find out what I do, they ask, why now? Why is it so drastic? And, our world has changed a lot. There's social media, which has drastically changed our social interactions. There's the climate crisis, just the consumption of information. there's this also reflects decades of not enough support, mental health support for our youth that's accessible where they spend most of their time, which is in school. So just as an example, California schools have an average of 527 students to one counselor, which is more than double the recommended ratio of 250 students to one counselor. And still, that's a big improvement from about 2 decades ago when California had nearly 1,000 students per counselor. Some of you might recognize Dr. Vivek Murthy, our US Surgeon General. And he talks about this as, both a challenge and an opportunity. He made an unprecedented he declared a public health advisory in January 2022, warning of a youth mental health crisis in the United States. And he talks about, although it's so widespread among our youth, it's treatable and it's often preventable. And one great way to address it would be through education. I love that he talks about mental health and as more than just monitoring mental illness, but truly about well-being and being well. We don't just want our young people to survive, we want them to truly thrive. And so this quote here, he says, I think to truly feel whole, it's not about acquiring something that we don't have. It's about remembering who we fundamentally are. So there it is again, that word remembering. That word that's at the root of the word mindfulness. It's really striking to me that one of the top government officials is pointing to something that's so in alignment with our approach at Peace in Schools and the practice of mindfulness, how healing and transformative it is when we can get in touch with the present moment and when we can get in touch with who we fundamentally are. And so this is where Peace in Schools comes in. Our mission is to liberate mind and heart through transformative mindfulness education. Our unique way of addressing the teen mental health crisis is this simple yet radical idea to provide in-depth, effective social emotional learning fully integrated in high school education. So 10 years ago, Peace in Schools partnered with the Portland Public School System to develop the country's first ever 4-credit mindfulness class in public high schools. This is a semester-long course. So on average, the students experience 72 hours of instruction. Over the last decade, over 6,000 students have completed our course in Portland, Oregon. And we have learned so much in that process. We also have worked with adults, serving nearly 200 adults. And our focus with adults is always on offering, the power of their own presence and how we can impact youth by just having a meaningful mindfulness practice ourselves. And so in this last decade, we've learned a lot about how the class works. So we call it mindful studies. And again, just to really underline, because sometimes people are so surprised by this, it's offered just as a regular class during the school day. So imagine you're a teen going through your day, you go to math class, you go to literature, and then you go to mindful studies and you walk in and there's a circle of mats on the floor with cushions. And there's a teacher in the room who really sees you and cares and has a deep mindfulness practice themselves. And you're with all different types of people from your school. It's 10th through 12th graders. And there's this sense of community and care, even though everyone is coming from a different walk of life, there's a really special energy in the room. And so over the last 10 years, we've really learned why this class, Mindful Studies, works. It's because of the depth of our curriculum. So we have crafted an essential inner curriculum, and it's a way for teens to ask important questions. Who am I? How can I have hope? What do I value? How can I be happy? And how can I belong? What's special about what we do at Peace in Schools is truly the depth. So because it's semester long or sometimes year long, we have so much time with the students and we're able to go beyond the basics. So every student in mindful studies learns kind of mindfulness 101, meditation, mindful eating, different practices that really teach them how to direct their attention. One of the things I love asking when I was a teacher is, I'd say to the students, raise your hands if anyone has ever told you to pay attention. Everyone raises their hand. And then I'd say, and keep your hand raised if anyone ever taught you how to do that. And all the hands would drop. And so really the first part of the class is just about giving them some basic tools so they can stabilize their attention, especially in the world that's so fast-paced and so distracting as it is today. It is so empowering for them to realize that they can choose where to place their attention, and that where they place their attention has a direct impact to the quality of their life experience. And so after kind of getting the basics and building community is like the other major part of the class. And that's why we know it's so strong. This is a community-based class. There's an average of 20 to 30 students in each mindful studies class. And we build what we call the environment of care. So that stands for confidentiality, acceptance, reverence, and empathy. And we know that without, that foundation of trust and community and connection, that the depth of learning won't be possible. So we build this beautiful community, we give students the basics, and that allows then us to go even deeper with them into concepts like exploring the conditioned mind. So what have I been conditioned to believe about myself, about others, about the world based on how I grew up or an experience that happened to me. We go into concepts like remembering our inherent wholeness, that same word that Dr. Vivek Murthy brought up, this sense of, getting in touch with the part of us that's unbreakable. And then the last part of the class is really about integration. Most of the teens in our class report bringing this outside of the class regularly into their relationships with friends, family, etc. So we have the curriculum, we have the community, and last but not least, we know that mindful studies works because of the teacher. So we have expert teachers, we have embodied educators. So every teacher who teaches mindful studies has an authentic practice of their own. They're not offering something that they haven't already experienced and practiced themselves. And that is a really important part of the effectiveness. So we know that it works as well because of our own evaluations. We have 10 years of data that we've collected in Portland, Oregon. And this just gives you a sense of what we're seeing. So 94% of teens report that our class helps them deal with stress. 84% of teens report that our class supports their sense of belonging at school. And 95% of teens report using the tools from the class outside in the rest of their lives. In addition to our own evaluation, we did an independent research study with Johns Hopkins University in 2018. This was an award-winning study. It was one of the first studies to look at adolescence, mindfulness in schools, and ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. And the high-level takeaways are that our class helps increase well-being, so emotional regulation, self-compassion, and coping, and it decreases suffering such as anxiety, depression, and judgment. And the positive impacts are actually magnified for girls, LGBTQ plus teens, and teens with higher levels of trauma. And once again, to bring a student voice back in here, mindful studies provides hope, clarity, an acknowledgement of the things that have impacted our lives, positive and negative. We're given coping mechanisms to use in times of distress and a safe space in which we can receive non-judgment from our teacher and classmates. It's a new and improved way to process and cope with the pain of everyday life. And this is offered for credit during the school day. This is accessible to every teen at the school. One of the most common things that I have heard in my time working with Peace in Schools when people learn about what we offer is, oh my gosh, I wish I had that in high school. So our approach to, helping to resolve the teen mental health crisis is to give this tool set for well-being, this foundation, this gift of remembering who we are in the present moment as early on in adolescence as possible, when teens are asking big questions about who they are, to when they're turning to coping mechanisms, to give them an alternative to other options that might harm themselves or others. And so we're at a very exciting time in our journey at Peace in Schools. We spent the last decade creating mindful studies, refining it, and really proving that it works. And we are now ready and motivated in light of the teen mental health crisis to grow and to begin bringing this to teens outside of Oregon and truly to as many as we possibly can, not growth for growth's sake, but to meet the urgent need. Because all teens deserve to have peace in their heart and in their mind and in their school. And so what we have worked on during the pandemic, we had time to really invest in a very thoughtful strategic planning process, and we've created a new model to deliver the class more widely than ever before. So what we've done in Portland for the last decade is send our own Peace in Schools employees into the high school setting to teach the curriculum. And what we're looking at doing now is to extremely thoroughly and thoughtfully train teachers already employed and embedded in high schools to teach this class. So we're calling this new program the Mindful Studies Partnership Program. And to give you just a quick overview, it's a 3-year program. So Peace in Schools partners with the high school. And, this is not your average train the trainer program. With a course with this much depth, it's not possible to take a quick weekend training and then just go teach mindful studies with the same impact. So we've really made it thoughtful. So in the first year of the partnership, Peace in Schools is engaging the entire school community, so offering mindfulness to the whole staff and to the students. And then we're doing an intensive mindful studies training for the select teachers who are going to teach the class. So we do that for a whole year. We get the curriculum approved through the district, so it can be for credit. And then year 2 is when the class gets going. So mindful studies kicks off, and that whole year we provide a mentor to the new teacher, because we know that so much of learning how to teach mindful studies happens once you're teaching it. And then in year 2, we provide community-wide mindfulness education, again, for the staff and also for the parent and guardian community, which we know is so important. And then lastly, year 3, we're still there. We're still supporting the teachers teaching this class. We're offering some even more in-depth professional development and mindfulness trainings, but we're really transitioning to this being sustainable by the school itself. And so this is not just an idea anymore. We're in our official first cohort of the brand new Mindful Studies Partnership Program. We have 2 schools in California and 5 schools in Oregon. And this is a picture of some of our teachers and educators on the first ever retreat as part of the training program. One of the teachers being trained said, "I want to thank Peace in Schools for this extraordinary opportunity. Might have gone my whole life without this type of training." And, one of the questions we asked ourselves as we thought about how can we get this to more teens? If we want to provide transformative mindfulness education to teens, we've got to provide access to that for educators as well. So I'm so thrilled that we're getting to work with these educators in depth to impact more teens. And last but not least, I want to say just a brief word about how our vision for how we're going to scale and how we're going to fund it. We're offering this free right now to our partner high schools. We know that funding is a huge barrier. And so in order to do that, we've been rallying a founding community of major donors that we're calling the Visionary Investor Circle. So this is a giving community supporting Peace in Schools to advance a shared commitment to mindfulness, to advance mindful studies. And my very exciting update with that is just we've had an incredible show of support. We've been able to raise over $2 million in pledges in less than 9 months. We have a Founders Drive goal of reaching $4 million in pledges by June 2026. And so we are well on our way there. That second half, 2 million, is in progress. But I share it because I think it's just a huge testament to how excited folks are to see more and more teens experience this. And so lastly, I just want to make sure that you know that if you want to learn more, join our newsletter, or if you've been thinking, oh my gosh, I want this to come to the high school in my community, make sure you go to our website or have it. It's just peaceinschools.org. And I am officially ready to open up now to Q&A, and Charlene, please come on back to join me.
Well, thank you, Janice. That was a really beautiful statement of all that you're doing. I think your organization not only has the best name, but it has something that is really important for the students in our communities. I've been doing this work for many decades as a developmental educator. And 18 years ago, when I started the Parent Education Series, student stress and well-being, mental health was a core value, and we thought we could solve it then. But it turns out to be a much more complicated issue than we knew, right?
Absolutely.
So my first question, and again, thank you everybody for the questions coming in. Keep them coming. These are really great. So in our community, for example, we know about mindfulness clubs. We know about peer-to-peer training. We know about after-school programs. Why are you convinced that it really needs to be an in-school course?
Yeah. Oh, thank you for this question. For one, it's access, right? So I contribute this to our founder. She started it as an after-school program. She was doing mindfulness at an after-school program, and the principal of the school started to notice the impact it was having. And he had recently had a student commit die by suicide at his school. So he was looking for support. He didn't know what to do. And so he approached her and said, "This seems to be working. How can I get this to more teens?" And she said, "Put me during the school day." So right from our, very beginning, there was this seed around access. We want to reach the students who have to babysit after school, who have jobs, who do sports. Like if it's during the school day, there's this beautiful incentive and opportunity for teens from all backgrounds to take it. And then the other thing I often talk about is I think we're at a special moment in time. So there was a time when physical education didn't exist, when PE was not a thing in high schools, right? And then we collectively realized how important physical education is. And then it's now an integrated for credit and required part of education. And I think we're right on the edge of having a kind of a realization and awakening around how important mental well-being and therefore social emotional learning is. It's actually not an add-on, it's foundational. Our students cannot learn academically, they cannot thrive physically without a foundation of mental well-being. And so I think what Peace in Schools is doing is working a little bit ahead of the curve and setting an example of like, what does it look like to have well-being as an integrated part of education. And, I hope in my lifetime that the same thing that happened to PE happens and we have a government, supported, mandated, every student is invited to have this be part of their education.
Well, Janice, I've been following mindfulness organizations for a long time as part of this work. But in your little practice that you took us through today, you said something really different. You said, and for now, you can be just who you are. And it reminded me of Fred Rogers. We like you just the way you are. We recently hosted Dr. Jeff Cohen from Stanford, who's the author of Belonging, and Dr. Jeremy Nobel, who's created Project Unlonely. This seems to me the next wave of where we have to take this to address loneliness, belonging, mental health. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, mindfulness is not the way that we teach it at Peace in Schools. It's not an individual practice for self-improvement. It's a collective practice to recognize and be in touch with what's inside of us all the time, and think about how insecure and how critical and in many ways how vulnerable our young teens are, to plant a seed that there is nothing wrong with them, that they are whole and lovable at their core while they're forming their identity. I mean, that's huge.
So, Janice, we have a couple questions coming in, and I think this would be one I'd want to know too. And that is, are you thinking about, or is there power to bring this to even younger students, elementary and middle school? It just seems like the practice could make such a difference during those often fraught years.
Yes. I absolutely support mindfulness for all ages. There's a amazing organization, Mindful Life Project, that started in the Bay Area that targets those ages. And there's a lot of great mindfulness curriculum for teachers to integrate as well. But Peace in Schools, and this came forward in our strategic planning process as well, we really want to focus on teens. I think our curriculum really speaks to that age and that cognitive development. And I will also say there's actually quite a large hole for that age group. So there's a lot more social emotional learning programs, curriculums, etc., for younger students already than there are for teens. So yeah, we love our teens. We're sticking with them for right now.
Now, I hear you. Listen, when I started the Parent Education Series 18 years ago, our audience was high school students, not just because my own children had reached that age, but that I knew there was almost nothing in terms of education from infancy and preschool until when.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
now there is some, but 18 years ago, there really wasn't. So I'm with you on that. I think adolescence is a really special time.
Mhm.
But someday, you may get the call.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting. We talk to a lot of high schools and districts across the country, and yeah, just to underline that they're really looking for something, and something that can fit in the high school structure, which is rigorous. Most of our high schools are college prep, and just trying to focus on setting students up for whatever they're doing next. And yeah, I think it's a really big opportunity.
I think so too. And I just love these questions. These are great. This is a really good one. Can the mindfulness curriculum be applied to a parenting program or support group, or is it specific to children and teens?
Yeah. So I do think it's specific to teens. I'm sure some of our things could be adapted to younger folks, but we've really developed it with teens in mind. And I will tell you, so we have done adult programs as well since 2017. It's exactly the same. We maybe switch up the examples. These are lifelong tools. They're timeless in a sense. And so, yeah, it's 100% applicable to teens and anyone older than that.
So, Janice, when you come to a school, Do you offer some PD to staff as part of that year, or how do you roll?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that we have learned through our own experience, and the research shows that our class mindfulness interventions will have bigger impact if it's not just an elective in a school, but if there's the same practice and understanding and even language within the whole school culture. So the new program, the Mindful Studies Partnership Program, we spend the whole first year just introducing the entire community to peace in schools and mindfulness. So, and there's a little bit of that woven into each year. So yeah, that does feel really important that the whole community gets at least a little taste of what their students can learn in the classroom.
And everybody who's on with us today, I want you to know that we were introduced to Janice through the schools themselves. And that's why we're here today, because one of the things that we always have done is take programs that schools may be presenting to students and bring it to you, the parents and caregivers, because it's really important for all of us to know, A, about wonderful programs the schools are doing, and B, to be educated about something like Peace in Schools. So, Janice, people want to know how they can get involved. The question is, I'm naturally high energy and a bit high strung. I'm interested in taking your training so that I can bring this program to my future school district. Is there hope for people like me? Ha.
Yeah, absolutely. I could describe myself that way as well. And as we kind of went over the definition of mindfulness, so much about what this practice has given me is love and acceptance for the parts of me that are anxious and high strung, and not get rid of those parts of me, but learn how to relate with them differently. So not only is there hope, but I would say you're already right where you need to be. So, and then in terms of bringing mindful studies to another school, so any adult who wants to get involved with us, we have programming for all. And then we have programming specifically for educators. And then we have programming specifically if you want to be trained to teach mindful studies. So I, for example, lead a weekly meditation online. Anyone can join, and we do different virtual events. We contract with schools, and we do kind of like educator trainings that are that we can craft for communities as professional development. And then there's the new Mindful Studies Partnership Program. And we're going to be doing outreach for our next cohort starting this fall. So please visit our website. There's a submission of interest form. It's great timing. If you have a high school in mind, we would love to hear from you. Mhm.
Okay, that's really good to know. But there are other ways for us as adults to get involved. It sounds like your website is very clear. It should be easy to find there. Yes.
Yep, there's an adult programs tab, and then there's an events where there's a weekly meditation if you wanna join me each Tuesday.
Okay, we like that. Thank you, Janice. So, this is another one of my questions. When is the right time to introduce a mindfulness practice to our children? And this one question, I think I know the answer to. What's the youngest age you've ever worked with?
Oh my gosh, my babies. Yeah, my babies. I mean, let's be clear, they don't need a mindfulness practice. I watch them to inform mine. They're so naturally present. Um, I think it's never too early. I have a 4-year-old, and then I have a 11-month-old, and we're already doing breathing practices with him, and you know, and I will say, and this is a real part of the Peace in Schools philosophical approach. So we can always offer our young people tools and practices, and there's great value in that. But if there was one thing that I think would be the most effective and powerful thing, it would be to have my own practice. So to have a child watch, rather than me teach my child, when you get upset, take 5 deep breaths, to have my child watch me when I get upset to take 5 breaths, that is powerful. And there's nothing more authentic than that. And that's what really comes through. They know that if you're just telling them to do something because it's the right thing to do, it's very different when they see you doing it yourself. And so that can begin right now, and that will affect any child that you get in contact with, any age.
Okay, so you don't necessarily say you all should have a family mindfulness practice and we're all going to do this Tuesday at 6 o'clock, that this is a very individual thing.
Yeah, I think, it's interesting. I have not, I will let my son and my daughter, when she's a little bit bigger, as he's interested in my mindful practice and meditation practice, I will be excited to welcome him in. But I really believe that like he already has everything he needs. Meditation is, there's this great quote from a meditation teacher named Rupert Spira, and he says, meditation isn't what we do, it's who we are. And so there are so many, mindfulness is one pathway into that remembrance of being present and remembering who we are. My son may grow up and he may do it in a different form. It may be a formal meditation practice like me. He may become a painter. I have no idea. So I think what's been really, what I love about the Peace in Schools approach, and I think why it's so accessible, is it's not a little box where you have to meditate in this certain way, or otherwise it's not it. Like it's a lot more open than that. Mhm.
Fair enough. And I have another question, but first somebody asked, the book that I mentioned is actually called Belonging. It has a subtitle, but it's Belonging, and the author is Jeffrey with a Geoffrey Cohen, Cohen. He's a psychology professor at Stanford. That's a beautiful book. And also Jeremy Nobel, who's a doctor, and his book is Project Unlonely. Both great adjuncts to your work. So, Janice, another thing that really attracted us to you and Peace in Schools is you serve a very diverse community. We're here in the middle of Silicon Valley, very diverse public high schools. Can you talk for a minute about why this practice is really important for kids who are diverse, who may have suffered trauma, who may be
Mhm.
gender fluid, all of those things?
Yeah. Yeah, such a great question. And, from my presentation, we have found that students with trauma, students with marginalized identities are actually selecting into our class at higher rates than what's reflected in the average student population. And so I think students with that background, they particularly benefit from a space that feels safe, where they can learn some tools, but it is a space of healing and inquiry. So I think it's I think it's so valuable for every single student, regardless of their background. And we've put a lot of thought and care to have our curriculum and our approach be like culturally responsive, explicitly anti-racist, and again, to really honor the roots. This practice belongs to all of us and has been practiced by, such diverse, there's so much diversity reflected in the history of mindfulness practice itself.
All right. And Janice, what do you say to parents who may be skeptical because they want their kid to be in calculus or advanced placement French or something? What do
Yeah.
you say to that?
Yeah, I would say, and this is a research project that we are hoping to get going in the next couple of years. But I would say that a mindfulness practice is probably, if you want a high performing student, if you want a high performing adult, if you want a well adult, whatever you hope for your child, mindfulness is only going to support that. And that's why you see mindfulness being practiced by top NBA players, in the military, doctors, CEOs. I mean, you name it, the folks who want to be high performing and efficient, they're seeking this. And there's just more and more data and more studies showing how valuable it is for the brain and the body.
All right. Well, listen, Janice, we've come to the end of our hour. This was so rich and wonderful. But I want to end with a question that we like to ask, but I think you of all people can really answer it. And that is, given everything you're seeing and studying, what gives you hope?
Mm. You know, I named my son, his middle name is Joy. And I have seen so many of our students in really difficult places and really dark places. And I think one of the things that gives me hope is that joy is always there. Like in our mindful studies class, we talk about deep things, we talk about hard things. But I think that there's this part of the human spirit that is just completely unbreakable. And I think we're endlessly creative. And I will say, last but not least, this next generation of young people, they're incredible. Um, they are craving presence, they are wise, they're drinking up mindfulness like it's water. And I think that we're going to learn so much from them.
That is a beautiful way to end our time together, Janice Martellucci. Thank you so much to you and Peace in Schools for your generosity and being here and for all that you're doing for our youth. It's so important. Parents, educators, those of you who are on with us today, thank you, thank you. This event will be again on our video library soon, so take care, everybody, and we hope to see you again soon. Bye for now.